चोल साम्राज्य के लिए उठा सकता। मैं चोल राज्य का सैनिक हूँ, चोल प्रजा का सेवक।
हिंदू மதங்கிற பேர் ராஜராஜ சோழன் காலத்தில் கிடையாது. அப்படி வைணவம்னு இருந்தது, சைவம்னு இருந்தது, சமணம்னு இருந்ததே தவிர அது வெள்ளக்காரங்க நமக்கு வச்ச பேர்.
There is a lot of difference between Vaishnavism and Shaivism. Both are two different religions. Subsequently, they were subsumed into one religion. So at that time of Raja Raja Cholan, there is a clear-cut difference. That is history.
If Vetrimaaran or Kamala Hasan or Thirumavalavan says that Raja Raja Cholan is not a Hindu, I can only pity them.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Were the Cholas Hindu or not? Is this another attempt at Hindu bashing, or it's just understanding the concept a little differently? Now in Sanskrit, and of course this is our philosophy, just like we had Mr. S. Gurumurthy there saying that the Indian way of life and Hinduism in India has to be seen as a philosophy and not a theology. So the moment you look at Hinduism or Hinduness or Hindutva as a way of life, one that unites us all in the simple principle that we believe in Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuta Vidanti. That means there is just one truth, there is one ultimate supreme being, but there are different ways to approach that truth or that supreme or that divinity. Then automatically all these streams become individual roots, but they are all with the same ethos. The ethos that the body is mortal, but the soul is perennial and lives on eternal. So this entire concept of Punarjanma, be it Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Shakya or any other panth or any other form of worship or belief, unites us all. If you are looking at Hinduism as a way of life, then yes, all of these form part of this way of life. Is Hinduism a religion or a way of life? Because Mr. Kamal Haasan said, that means it's the whites who branded us as Hindus. The Goras came here and branded us as Hindus. We were not Hindus. We were Shaivites, we were Vaishnavas, we were different forms. That's what Mr. Kamal Haasan said. But where he erred is he called Hinduism as a religion. Is Hinduism a religion today, or is it still a way of life? Now, if it is a way of life, then who were the Cholas? The Cholas were Shaivites. This is what is chronicled even in the Sangam literature. Let's try and understand this aspect, ladies and gentlemen. Who were the Cholas? So the Cholas were Shaivites. The Cholas, underscoring, they were practitioners of Hinduism. This is what, as per the literature of Sangam period, very clearly tells. Because they were Shaivites. Raja Raja Chola constructed the largest Shiva temple, the Brihadishwara temple, in 1013. Queen Sembian, Mahadevi, initiated the building of temples. Image of Parvati, a stylized portrait of Queen Sembian. Shivanatraja made iconic religious and political symbol during the Chola period. So what do Supreme Court and the courts turn around and say about what the likes of Vetrimaaran and of course Kamala Hasan have turned around and said that there was no Hinduism at that time. Believers of Shaiva form of worship are not a denominational sect of or section of Hindus, but they are Hindus as such. This is what the courts have said. Three-judge bench of the court has turned around and said. But they are Hindus as such. They are entitled to the protection under Articles 25 and 26 of the Constitution. However, they are not entitled to the protection in particular of clauses B and D of Article 26 as a religious denomination in the matter of management, administration and governance of the temples under the Act. The Act, therefore, is not ultra vires Article 25 and 26 of the Constitution. So they are Hindus per se, but they are not a separate denomination. So in the present day and age, Hinduism, the courts have defined it as a way of life. Hindutva is Hinduness, that ultimate feeling that unites us all, because that's central, that philosophy is central to Bharat. So were the Cholas not Hindus, is the question that we ask. And is there an attempt to distort history or to confound people by using terminologies which could perhaps spur the debate or push a particular political agenda? Were they talking facts, and did they just deviate a little bit. Let's try and understand this. Khushbu Sundar, actress and BJP leader with us. T.R. Ramesh, advocate and historian. And Dushyant Sridhar, Vedic scholar with us. My namaskarams to everybody and festive greetings. It's a festive season. And this is a time when perhaps across the world we see people returning to tradition, people returning to ways of the old religion and understanding our concepts. And we internally in our own country are tending to do that. But let me ask you, Dushyant Sridhar, would you want to get into the argument of Hinduism and who defined this entire grouping called Hindus? Shaivism, Vaishnavism, different facts. So then, is Mr. Kamal Hasan right or wrong? Vellakaranga Hindu pernu vechanga. There were Saivites, there were Vaishnavites, each person was different, is what he said.
Namaskaram Anand and namaskaram to my fellow panelists. This is the zillionth debate that I am participating on this topic, which is an open shut case. Nevertheless, the first retort that I would like to give is people who are questioning, be it the film director or the actor, they have proclaimed themselves to be atheists. So largely people who do not conform to any religious principles. In that case, for them it shouldn't matter when there is a debate whether it's Shaivism, Vaishnavism or all of this fits under one umbrella. I don't know what is the role of Sri Thirumavalavan and Sri Kamala Hasan with respect to this debate. Nevertheless, let's keep that aside. Let's have a very intellectual debate from which I think the people who have issued such statements will run away. Let's assume for a minute the prima facie, which is the Purva Paksham, that these kings should not be treated as Hindu kings, but they should be called a Shaiva king or a Vaishnava king. Now, let's go, if they talk about Vaishnava kings, Vaishnavism in the Tamil literature follows the works of the Alvars called the Nalayira Divya Prabandham. Nammalvar, of course, who's hailed as the Alvar who gave us the Tamil Vedam called Thiruvaimozhi, he says in one of his works, Irukkar Mozhiyil, he mentions about Irukkar. Irukkar is Rigvedam. And his work called Thiruvaimozhi is called Rishim Jushamahe Krishna Trishna Tattva Mivothitam Sahasra Shakham Yodrakshim Dravidim Brahma Samhitam. His 1000 verses of Thiruvaimozhi in Tamil is regarded as the essence of Samavedam. So all these Alvars whom they say they were all Tamil saints who followed Vaishnavism, they all celebrate Vedam. So these people, Kamala Hasan and Vetrimaaran and the others who say that they should be recognized as a Shaiva king or a Vaishnava king, should also agree with their ideologue or the ideas that they suggest. One. Second thing is, when we look at the inscriptions given during the time of Raja Raja Chola, it is completely against what they are proclaiming. Let's take for a moment Sri Raja Raja Cholan, who performed a vratam called as Hiranyagarbha Vratam. It is a yagam, and in that procedure, it is said that you will have to use Atharvana Vedam, which is the fourth Vedam, and do the entire elaborate procedure. So the king and the queen were the kartas of that yagam. They participated. They were not patrons. They did not pay the money and ask somebody to do the yagam. They performed a ritual which is in accordance to the Vedas. So if Atharvana Vedam, which is the fourth Vedam, is a part of the Vedic system which Hinduism and Sanatana Dharma agrees, and even Shaivism agrees. If you look at the works of the Nayanmars, they are completely conforming to the Vedic principles. Nan Marai, these four Vedas keep coming, this word keeps coming time and again. Vedam Vallargalai Kundu Vinnor Peruman Padam Paninde. In fact, it's very interesting, Anand. The late Chief Minister Sri Karunanidhi, in his last days, directed a serial called Ramanuja on the celebrated governing personality Ramanujacharya, who lived 1000 years before. And the word Ramanuja appears in Ramayanam, in Sundarakandam, Ramanujam Lakshmana Purvajam Cha. So the word appears there. And Ramayanam, the hero is Rama. So the beauty is, he agreed on Ramanuja but disagreed on Rama. But the beauty is, Ramanuja says, for me, my heart is filled with Ramayanam. Ramayanam ennum bhakti vellam. So I feel, first of all, they should take some time off. People who are claiming such things, get into a course, read the Tamil literature, read the Bhakti literature, and then come on a debate. It feels very, very imprudent on me and very, very unfortunate of me to even answer questions of such people who are, repositories of idiosyncrasy.
No, but you see, you've used Tarkashastra brilliantly. But the fact is, and Gurumurthy sir also spoke about it, because that's our culture. You not only look at the Purva Purusha, the aspect, but you also understand the other persons, where they are coming from, and you make a strong argument based on your knowledge. But these are opinion makers, Khushbuji. Rameshji, I'll come to you after Khushbu. These are opinion makers. They are the ones who publicly hold a certain sway. They are making movies that also alter the discourse. And then they are setting out to critique. And it stems from a fact that how can you portray them as a Hindu king? Now, what do you mean by portray somebody as a Hindu king? If you're a Hindu, if you're here in Bharatam, then you, irrespective of what way you follow, you are Hindu. That means you do not look at Hinduism as a way of life. So they get confused in their own argument or caught in their own argument.
No, it's unfortunate that some, get caught in these kind of arguments because they think that their way of thinking is way ahead of anybody else. Now, when you look at Hinduism, the Hindu Shastra says where Hinduism comes from. You can say that the word Hinduism was coined by the Britishers, but when you look into the history, every time there's an argument about Hinduism or Hindutva, Manusmriti has been brought in. If you do not agree that Raja Raja Cholan who was 1,200 years back an emperor, you'd say that he was not a Hindu, but then but Manusmriti is technically part of Hinduism and Hindutva. Then that was 3,000 years ago. So if you accept Manusmriti, then you have to accept Raja Raja Cholan as a Hindu king, which they defied themselves. They actually go back on their own words, and they do not understand that Hinduism, Hindutva, or Shaivites or Vaishnavites, whatever you call them, that has been a way of life on India. Talk about Christianity. Christianity is. It came 200 years after the death of Jesus Christ. But do you say that? I mean, you have so many. You have PSI, you have Protestants, you have Roman Catholics, you have so many people. But do they not all come under Christianity? Or when you talk about Muslims, you have Shias, you have Sunnis, you have Sufis. Does not everything else come under one umbrella, and that is called being Muslims? Why is it only when it comes to Hindu, they are not ready to accept that everything else comes under one umbrella, and that is about the way of life, Hindutva, Hinduism? That's why they are not ready to agree. They do not agree on that basis. What I don't understand. It's an independent country. It's a very.
No, somewhere, Khushbuji, is that also because the other two that you talked about, the Abrahamical religions, are aligned on theology, whereas Hinduism as a way of life or Hindutva is a philosophy. So what happens? Yeah. So that's where perhaps the difference comes, that the umbrella of the overall, you may have different sects, but it aligns to one particular book and one particular thought process. In Hinduism, it doesn't align that way. It aligns on a philosophy where you largely believe on Punarjanma. That's what binds us all. We believe that the Atma is immortal, the Atma is perennial, and the Atma is a part of the universal energy or cosmos, which we call in both forms, personal and impersonal.
But that's what we say. The ethos of life is what we are talking about. So if you agree to something else, you have to agree to this. You cannot say that I accept A, but I'm not ready to accept B. But I'm fine with C. That is not the way of life. I mean, it's there for people. They are very well-read people. I have huge respect for Mr. Kamal Hasan, being a very well-read person. But he has been pulled into this controversy unnecessarily because probably he wanted to say something else and something else has been stated. But I would say that people like Vetrimaaran or Thirumavalavan or anybody for that matter, if you're talking about history, I think you need to know the entire history. Just because you do not want to accept being known as a Hindu, or you don't want to know that, you just want to push Tamil. Tamil is part of Hinduism. What are we talking about today? Even the Dravidian culture we are talking about. Where does it come from? We need to look back. We need to look where you're talking about Rig Veda. Where does it come from? All the inscriptions on the temples we go to, it shows that anywhere you go, all these inscriptions on the wall in the temples, it comes from Hinduism. So why is it? And even the temples which were built by Raja Raja Cholan, the biggest temple for that matter, the Tanjavur Periya Koil.
Yes.
I mean, look at all the transcriptions. He himself called Shivan Padasevagan. He called himself somebody who wanted to be at the feet of Shivan and serve him. So those kind of humbleness when you see that where does Shivan come from? Where does Vishnu come from? Today, it was Raja Raja Cholan who has built temples of Shivan and Vishnu together. So you have so many temples in Tamil Nadu today, all over the place, where you have Shivan and Vishnu together. So Shaivats and Vaishnavites, they all have come together. And that has become part of Hinduism. That has become part of it, because that is where basically it comes from.
The
grow,
streams
but
have merged,
take away the fact that the child comes from the womb of a mother. You cannot take that womb away from the child. And that is where the basic argument lies.
Very rightly said. The fact of this, in terms of this argument, Shiva is also hailed as the greatest Vaishnava. It is mentioned in none other than in the Brahma Samhita. The other aspect is that you talked about Manusmriti, which is 3,000 years old, so that's a convenient political argument. But then after that, there is a Parashara Smriti which never is spoken about. So there are a lot of arguments and counter arguments to the word Dravidam. The word Dravidam itself, we heard him mention. Dushyant Sridhar mentioned the word Dravidam. Dravidam is the land that is sandwiched between two seas or two water bodies, two large water bodies. So all of Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, all of this now is actually Dravida Nadu. It's not just this entire political narrative of one particular land that is Tamil Nadu, which is this. So this entire Dravidian politics itself is also distorted, because Adi Shankaracharya, they introduced himself as somebody who came from Dravida. And that too, he did it in Kashmir. But the meaning was different. T.R. Ramesh, so those who are now trying to confuse, convolute, are they pushing a particular political narrative which is steeped in Periyarism?
Well, they have to talk Dravidism, because many of the people in the DMK party speak Telugu as the mother tongue. And EVR Ramaswamy Nayakar, who was Periyar, his mother tongue was Kannada. And he said Tamil is a barbaric language. To hide all this, they keep talking about Dravidism and all that, and not really about Tamil or Tamil Nadu. Now, keeping that aside, if Raja Raja was a Saivite, again, Saivism is a sect of the Sanatana Dharma, which is now known as Hinduism. And in Saivism, there are many sects. There is Pasupada, there are Pasupadas, there are Kabalikas, and there are Shiva Brahmanas. There are so many sects there. And Raja Raja practiced Lagulika Pasupada. And for him, the main deity is Sadashiva Murti. He has come with a statue of Sadashiva Murti in the big temple.
Yes.
So you can go on dividing sects and subsects and so on. But he belongs to Sanatana Dharma, and he followed Manu Dharma Niti, because he is a descendant of Manu Niti Chola. Now Manu Niti Chola ruled the Chola Empire from Tiruvarur, and Mr. Karnanidhi has erected a monument for Manu Niti Chola, for a great administrator of justice in Tiruvarur. And not only that, the DMK government got a pillar erected in the name of Manu Niti Chola in Madras High Court, because that Chola was a great administrator of justice. And Raja Raja is a direct descendant of Manu Niti Chola. So he followed, his predecessors followed Manu Dharma and Sanatana Dharma. There is no doubt, there is not even iota of doubt that he is a Hindu first, then a Saivite, and within a Saivite, he was a Pasupada Saivite. And he established the Tanjore temple, the temple which is in my hometown. I grew up watching the Tanjore temple every day. That temple he established under Maguda Agama, one of these 28 Saiva Agamas, and the Agamas came from the Vedas. Thevaram says, Vedanari Taraithongas Nidisaivat Turai Valanga. Periya Puranam says that. The chief minister of the Chola Empire has said this. That means, let the Veda way of life flourish. And Saiva, which is a sect of that, let it be splendorous. So, Saivism is a sect of Vedanari, or the Veda way of life, and which is now known as Hinduism, popularly known as Hinduism. Chidambaram Dikshitas are the first among the Saivites, because Thevaram says, I am the servitor of those who serve Chidambaram Dikshitas. And they are Saivites number one, but they follow Vedas. The pujas they do are not even according to Agamas, but according to the Vedas. So, Sanatana Dharma is the umbrella under which other sects of Hinduism come, and the Sanatana Dharma is the umbrella spread across Bharat. There is no doubt about it. And if Thirumavalavan says something else, A. Raja says something else, they should first disown that they are not, that they are Hindus. They are not Hindu. They should declare they are not Hindus. Then they will lose their parliamentary seats immediately.
That is the other political angle of something crypto about it.
From reserve constituencies as Hindus.
And then we get into the political narrative of something crypto about it. So the Madurai bench of the Madras High Court has already made the term crypto Christianity, where you would retain your Hindu names, but you've already changed your religion because you want your quotas to prevail. Now there is this matter is sub judice, and former Chief Justice Balakrishnan is now part of the 3-member committee that's been constituted to look into this. So
nevertheless, as of today, if they say we are not Hindus, they lose their parliament seats. That
is true. They will not say that. They want to keep that Hindu name and that overarching, perhaps the frontal Hindu identity, so that they can openly bash Hinduism as being part of within the community, and perhaps then go ahead and say what they want to say, thinking that will get more traction or practice.
Talking about names, the name Raja Raja is one of the 1,000 names of Lord Shiva.
Yes.
Raja Raja is found in the Sahasranama of Lord Shiva.
Yes.
I think it's the 997th name.
Correct.
It is Raja Raja had a Hindu name and Shiva's name. He did not have a Muslim name like Hasan. So today, Hassans can talk about Raja Raja not being a Hindu, but they should say to which religion they belong first. They should declare that.
Well, we are not here to question everybody's religion or what their faith is, but they should be open about what they follow before they start bashing, because they cannot have perhaps a front or a facade and then go ahead and bash. But I'm not going to get into that. Mr. Kamal Haasan is far more educated, and he is also well versed in the ways, because he has done his research. When he came, and what he said today, Dushyant Sridhar, came from the fact that we did not have a concept of Hinduism at that time. There were Shaivas and Vaishnavas, various sects. These Hindus, he said, Vellakaranga, they put this name. And that is true, because the Portuguese brought in the word casta or caste, and the British in around 1528, that's when they did not know how to classify all those who are neither Christian nor Muslim. So what do you do with all of them? They bunch them up as, or Sikhs, so they bunch them all up as Hindus. So that's what is the explanation is given. That's also subject to correction. But I'm just saying, is that reason enough for them to have this kind of a line what they're taking? Or is it because that's how they're politically oriented and that's how they've been taught?
In most of our works, literature that I'm talking about, the land is referred to as Chola Desham, Pandya Desham, Kupya Choli, Vachana Kutilehi, Kuntalehi, Sishtamule, says Vedanta Deshika. It is called the Chola Desham, Pandya Desham, Chera Desham, from time immemorial, as and when they ruled. So then we had the state with a new name called as Tamil Nadu. So Tamil Nadu, the land of Tamils, did not exist before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was. So I should be called a Pandya or a Chola.
Pandya kingdom. Pandya kingdom was known as Tamil Nadu.
Now,
and subsequently,
when you talk about the word, when you talk about Tamil Nadu as well, since Shri Rameshji is talking, it's called as Alavai. In Kalidasa's work, Raghuvamsham, it is called as Uraganagaram, Alavai. It was called Kudal Managari.
No, the Pandya Nadu is always known as Tamil Nadu.
So what about Chola Nadu?
Because that's where the Tamil Sangam was there. That's why it's known as Tamil Nadu. But now the name denotes the entire state of Tamil Nadu, including the Chola, Pallava.
So that's what. So Tamil Nadu, as we see today, was never existing. It's come to fruition after.
It's a name that has come now.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more thing, to recognize Raja Raja Chola as only a Shaivite will also be wrong. Though he may have constructed a temple for Shiva, he has given so much of donations for Vishnu temples. In fact, his sister Kundavai has recognized herself to be an Alvar herself. In one of the inscriptions, she says she is so devoted to Vishnu that she calls herself an Alvar. The role played by Trisha. Aniruddha Brahmaraya, played by the veteran actor Mohan Ram, he belonged to the place called Anbil, traditionally in history. He belonged to the Gotra of Harita, from which Ramanuja comes. So all those Anbil plates talk about the lineage of the kings of Ayodhya, and then they talk right from Vishnu to Manu. Now, interestingly, Anand, there is so much of hue and cry about Manu Dharma Shastra in Tamil Nadu. Let's all of us now excuse ourselves and say we don't agree with Manu Dharma Shastram. Let's see what Raja Raja Chola has to say. In one of the inscriptions, he states, Yavat Kailasha Shaile Viharati. As long as the Kailasha exists, as long as the Milky Ocean of Vishnu exists, me, the one who has come in the lineage of Manu. Now, they may say it's Manu Niti Chola who has come. But here, Manuna Manavendrena Yapuri Nirmita Swayam, says Valmiki in Valmiki Ramayana. So it is very clear that if you have to associate a term, an identity, let's say the Tamil identity with Raja Raja Chola, you will have to agree with what all he says in his inscriptions. Correct. He says that Shiva should be worshipped. Will they worship Shiva? Now let's assume that Kamala Hasan says he's a Shaivite king. You should not associate himself with a Hindu king. From tomorrow, let him start reading the Periya Puranam and the Tirumurai. If he is a Vaishnava king, I will be very happy. I'll be esteemed very, very fortunate to have such a national award winning actor as my student to teach Nalayara Divya Prabandham. So let him learn. See, when they are not ready to read on the Tamil literature, the Bhakti literature, what is the use of talking about giving an identity to a king when the king himself is called as a Shivapada Shekara? Correct. He says, I am at the feet of Shiva. And Shiva is being celebrated in Rudram. Today being the day when it's Pradosham, we recite Sri Rudram. So from Sri Rudram, we know Rudra. So I don't know, where are they trying to head us to? They should be heading somewhere, right?
No, it is heading in the direction where they want to separate the whole concept of being a Hindu, Khushbu Sundar, from the various sects or the various different shoots or say branches of Sanatana Pratha. That perhaps is the motive when they say something like that. Would you agree, disagree, Khushbu Sundar?
No, I think it's just that they want to divide. They want to bring in a divide. It's the same VCK leader who's spoken in one of the areas in Tamil Nadu today, where he's saying that the DMK government should have the Hindu endowment in two different sections. You separate the Shaivites and the Vaishnavites, and this is what the talks are today. So they are the ones who've been talking about the divide. Though they say that we are the central, we are the centrist, or we are the leftist, or we are the atheist. We do not believe in Hinduism. We do not follow any religion. But they're the same ones who are talking about the divide. Nowhere in Hinduism, when we talk about anyone for that matter, whether they're Shaivites or Vaishnavites, we don't divide. We say everything comes together, and we say that it's about Hindu, the way of life. And it's easy for people to choose. It's their way of life. They have to choose what they want to do. But the minute you start talking about divide, and let me tell you, my very good friend, Mr. Kamal Hasan, is known as Thenampet Alvar. I mean, he may say that I'm an atheist, but he's known as Thenampet Alvar. So what does that make him is what I don't understand. But, you cannot be using a religion, or you cannot be using a way of life for your political gains, whether it is Mr. Thirumavalavan, or whether it is DMK, or Mr. Hasan, or anybody for that matter. You cannot be using that to gain any kind of political minds. You have your ideas, but then if you're trying to distort the history, if you're trying to take things away which actually belongs to the land of India, belongs to the ethos of life of Indians, if you're going to take that away, then that's when the problem starts. I think we need to have a very clear mindset as to where you're going to bring in, whether you want to believe your beliefs are your beliefs, but then you cannot distort what is there as the way of life of probably every Indian. Where
I think what,
and where were Christians? I mean, it was known as Hindu Nad. Where does that Hindustan comes from? Where does that when you talk about your river Sindhu to Indu to Hindu, where does it come from? I mean, that's the whole history what we have to read. You cannot
it's like conveniently weaving the narrative to suit a particular perhaps ulterior political motive, or it is stemming from a certain amount of lack of awareness or ignorance somewhere. It's perhaps stuck there. And what we need to do, Mr. T.R. Ramesh, Dushyant Sridhar and Khushbu Sundar, is that to try and spread the awareness and talk about it a little more openly and challenge certain misnomers. T.R. Ramesh, I have run out of time, but I promise that we will do a longer debate and a longer discussion on this matter very, very soon. I have to wind up on that note. I thank you all for joining us on this Friday edition. Making way for Brass Tacks.